Hey, I'm Patrick Pallas, and I'm here on behalf of the National Conference of Bar Presidents. And I'm reaching out to bar leaders across the country. And today I'm fortunate enough to have Ed Walters, who's the CEO of Fastcase, to join us. And I want to check in with you, see what's going on at Fastcase, see what some of the thoughts are that you have about this COVID-19 crisis that we as lawyers are dealing with. But let me start here with you, and it's with you. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I feel blessed. I mean, this is when we record this, it's a couple of days after we found out that, our friend David Latt is out of the hospital.
Yes.
And what a blessing. He was very seriously ill. And I'm glad to hear that he is now not only not in ICU, but home with his parents and recovering, writing again, which is great. Happily, we started working from home pretty early at Fastcase, and so our team was all safe. And I've been teaching at Cornell Tech in New York City, and so when this started pretty early on, started teaching remotely before school was canceled. So I think as many bar leaders have probably seen, just an early proactive response makes a huge difference. And it really did for us as well.
Well, and that's exactly the kind of thing that I want to talk about with you. We're reaching out to bar leaders across the country, and it's really a conversation of bar leaders to bar leaders, what's working and what's not. And I know that Fastcase was very quick to create a resource page and to jump in to help the entire legal community. And I want to talk about that some. Tell me about Fastcase's efforts, the things that you are doing.
Well, for the fastcase.com part of it, in some ways, someone said like the other day, they were, it was a legal research and writing professor who was doing legal research with their 3-year-old in pajamas. And they said legal research is better in pajamas, and I said, yeah, we've been, Fastcase has been supporting pajama-based legal research since 1999.
I love that.
In some ways, when bar members are displaced from their libraries, from their, resources in the office, having that kind of stuff available through Fastcase, through CaseMaker 2, through bar associations is a lifeline. And in some ways, bar associations are always going to be first responders in times like this. They're going to be the ones who proactively reach out and say, there's a flood, there's a hurricane, there's a fire, there's an earthquake, there's a pandemic. We're going to be the ones who are helping you keep your law practices online so you can keep helping your clients. And so, I think in a situation like this, we've been very happy to partner with our bar associations to keep law firms online, to keep them practicing law, helping clients, making money, doing the things they need to do to, keep their team members employed. And so, I think bar associations are just critical, like a very important lifeline here. And we're always very happy to be shoulder to shoulder with them, helping them to do that. So online legal research, for the legal research part of it, people have access to it wherever they are. They're working from home. Their access is completely uninterrupted. And that's something we did sort of early on. Another thing we did was there's a lot of resources about what's happening in law for coronavirus, what's happening legislatively, what Congress is doing, what states are doing, both from a legislative and a regulatory perspective. We're trying to collect a lot of those on the Fastcase website. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. It's fastcase.com/blog/free-COVID-19-resources. But
that's
we'll
all, just that. That's all it is. Just
yeah, right.
I will post it.
We pull together also things from other publishers, right? From Lexis, from Bloomberg, from Wolters Kluwer, from Scopus Labs, showing all of the regulatory responses, what courts are open and closed, everything that's happening that affects law firms, that deals with this crisis. we're trying to pull all together into one place. So you don't have to go to 22 different websites. You can always just sort of look, is my court open? Is the Supreme Court doing, arguments in person? How are they adjusting the
Right.
schedule? How are bail hearings going? Like, so all of these things we're trying to, pull together for people. And, again, this is not all Fastcase stuff. This is stuff that a lot of people have created. And we're just trying to, serve as a central, repo for it where we can.
Last week, I tried to start cataloging all of the resource sites that are out there. And, as well as I do, if you're on Twitter, these links are being pushed out all the time by people and updated. And I thought there were so many great links that I went to collect all of them and start looking through the websites. And I thought that Fastcase website was really good in looking not just at like strictly legal things, but like you said, information that's out on Lex blog. It's a tongue tangler. Lex
Yes.
blog, and Law Street Media, and then you went through resources from other organizations that are there too. I think it's a really comprehensive website that's very useful. Let me talk in terms of what bar leaders need. In addition to what's on fastcase.com and these resources, can we talk about like maybe a layer out or a 10,000 foot view? What is it that you see that bar leaders are really needing right now from where you sit? How do you think you can help most or we can help most?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the thing that I think everyone knows. One of the hardest things is timing. I know it's on everyone's mind. What do you do with the annual meeting? That's a big revenue driver. It's a big community builder for state bar associations. And I think we just don't know whether that's going to be possible or commercially viable in a post-COVID-19 world. And so I think what I'm seeing is a lot of very proactive state bar associations really trying to think what the role of the annual meeting is. You could hold it as scheduled and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
You could push it out a little bit to have it in the fall instead of the early summer maybe. I know June is like a very busy time for a lot of annual meetings. You could cancel it all together and replace it with something else. But I think it's kind of hard to imagine it's business as usual, right? So I think that's front of mind. I'll say one other thing. So it's April 6th when we're recording this. I don't know when people are going to watch it. One thing we do at Fastcase, we follow data pretty closely. And as you and I talked about before, we're following the epidemiology studies from the University of Washington, showing what the projected curves are for the distribution. Maybe we can put that in the show notes too. And again, they're just forecasts, right? No one really knows. No one has a crystal ball for this. But at least the epidemiology reports and the forecasts are starting to show for the first time a leveling out of the bell curve. And for some states, maybe even approaching the peak now or even past the peak a little bit. And so for, what, Patrick, a month and a half,
Yeah.
bar associations have been super dialed in on what is our response to hit the brakes on everything. How do we stop everything to get people working from home? How do we stop in-person meetings? How do we reschedule webinars and bar events? How do we get CLEs online instead of in person? Well, I think the proactive thing now, I mean, I hate to say this, I hope it's not too early, but I think the proactive thing now is bar associations need to start thinking about what happens when we let off the brake. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying let off the brakes now. Okay, April 6th.
Of course.
Stay at home, stay healthy, observe all of the regs, right? But you can't start thinking about how to get back into the flow of things, 2 months from now. So I think it's time to start allocating the time, right, between continuing to plan for contingencies, continuing to figure out how to manage cash flow during the summer for a bar association, and starting to allocate some of the time, maybe 10% of the time right now, for planning the return, planning on what happens when we come back.
So one of the questions that I had for you, you've kind of anticipated, which is I was going to ask you, what kind of advice do you have for bar leaders? And what I'm hearing you say is, um, in the height of this Corona crisis, when maybe we're reaching a peak or within week or 10 days within a peak, you're suggesting to bar leaders, it's not too early to start thinking about how we rehab our bars and get us back into the swing of practice law the old fashioned way. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, that's right. And maybe stronger, maybe in a I hate to say it, but maybe even better than before.
Well, that begs the next question, which is, I think you're uniquely positioned to answer this, which is, all right, so we start to rehab back in and get back into our practices. But everyone realized at this point that we're past the point of no return. We're never going to go back to that office that we left in March or in February. We're going to come back to a new office and a new law and a new way to practice law. And I'm curious what some of your predictions, and I know I'm putting you right on the spot,
No,
what
no,
your
please.
predictions are where some of the biggest shifts are going to be. And I'll give you the first one, that there's going to be more video conferencing and Zoom use in everyday practice than ever before. And more people are going to work from home from now on than ever before.
Yeah,
Anyway, but tell me
good
some other
prediction.
things you think are going to happen from this.
Well, so one thing that's interesting, Patrick, is we always think about how law firms and lawyers and bar associations too deal with the courts and court filings and how to do all these things when you're working from home. I'm fascinated by the flip side of it as well, because courts have really made more changes in the last month than they probably did in the 10 years before that. Courts are starting to see that many of the things they do aren't essential, right? And I'm interested in, they're saying, here's the things we need to do every day, which are essential, and here's the ones that aren't. What happens when they go back? Do they reprioritize or change how they do those things? Courts are starting to see that there are some things that they can do without an in-person appearance in court. And I can't help but think that they are changed forever. So courts have this opportunity to make a transition from being places to being services,
Yeah.
and courts realizing that what they're doing is it's a justice function, not a justice building. And if we can start to do these things more remotely, there's a lot of great benefits from that. So for a lot of states, there aren't enough lawyers in the rural areas. When people graduate from law school, they move to cities, right? And so you have these justice deserts where you can't find lawyers to handle these matters. Well, if courts are doing a better job of moving some of these services online, then remote lawyering becomes more possible, and we can provide more access to justice to people in remote areas through video services, through video appearances, and you're starting to see it too in remote notary services. States like New York and Texas are saying you can notarize things remotely, witnessed online with authenticated documents. And so I think some of the things we have had to do as workarounds from working from home might start to look like modernization of court processes. And it may give us all a chance to update how we think about courts, how we think about the delivery of justice services, and how we serve people.
I love that whole concept that it's, you said broadly courts, it's not a place, it's a service. And I think of how many ways we can apply that. We can say trial, it's not a place, it's a service, or arbitration, or hearings. But we could also say it about things like the bar exam. The bar exam's not a place,
Yeah,
it's a
right.
service, right? I really like that whole concept that if we just shift our way of thinking away from a physical destination and into a list of services that can be provided anywhere, then we get away from the mentality that we have to go to the courthouse, or we have to go to take the bar exam in a place, or we have to go to our university classroom to sit in front of our teacher, right? This whole thing
No, that's right.
shifts. I think that that concept is brilliant that you just brought up.
With that said, though, I think there is totally a role for in-person events. I love them. I love to meet with my tribe. I
Right.
can't wait to see you the next time I get a chance to see you or all of our, friends in the bar world. I really missed Bar Leaders Institute in Chicago this year. So I love the in-person events. I still think there's going to be a role for like bar annual meetings. My students in my Law of Robots class at Cornell Law School, like I can't wait to see them again. But chances are we're done for the semester. So I think it will also maybe return to us what is essential about those in-person events. I can't remember who said it, but it really is interesting how much the isolation of working from home makes us realize how important those connections are.
Yeah.
And I think bar associations should recognize that as well. At the end of this, people are going to want to get together more than ever. And when they can do so safely, bar associations are going to provide a critical function for that. That's how we're going to do it.
In my office, we have Monday morning coffee when we could, and now we have Monday morning Zoom room coffee, and it fills some of the need of seeing each other and communicating. But it's you're right. It doesn't satisfy all of our human needs to see and communicate. And let me ask you to leave with this. What advice would you give to a bar leader right now who's in this place, in this time on April 6th, looking at this crisis? What advice would you give to them?
You've had this conversation with me a couple of times, Patrick, but my very first thing for bar leaders is clients. The bar exists to make sure that we're providing adequate legal services for clients. And that is like the critical role. And I think about medical professionals, doctors and nurses in hospitals right now who are struggling to put together a medical power of attorney, a living will, trying to find a way to create legal documents that are going to take care of their families if, heaven forbid, they get sick, trying to save people's lives. So I really think that we should keep clients at the center of our conversation. Our bar associations are made up of lawyers, but those lawyers are unified in one thing, which is service to clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to make sure that we're keeping those clients front and center and finding ways in a time where we don't work in the office anymore, where our clients can't come to us, that we're taking care of those clients, and that we're finding ways for lawyers to work in this new reality that takes care of those clients while hopefully taking care of the legal practices as well. The last thing I'll say is, I really am hopeful as I'm looking at the epidemiological reports, if I can get that word out. If I'm looking at the bell curves, that's easier to say. I really am hopeful. I think we are just now starting to see, the downslope of those curves and maybe start to plan for what happens at the end of this crisis. And I think this is something that we can all face together. We can all share best practices. We can all, look to each other for good ideas for communicating and trying to figure out, how do we come out stronger on the other end of this, and how do we do it together?
And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we're not a bar association. We're a geeky software company in Washington, D.C., but our door is always open, whether it's webinars or just conversations, ways of breaking the monotony. We're always happy to help, and people can call on us anytime. You can always get me. My direct email I'll put in the show notes too, but that's ed.walters@fastcase.com.
You and I communicate well. What I was going to do is two things. One, thank you, because you're always a great leader for the bar, and I know you have a great network of bar presidents you work with and bar organizations, and thank you for stepping up and helping so many people. But I also wanted to note that you should give us a way to get hold of you, and so you've done that. I suspect that bar leaders will reach out to you because they may want to do a Facebook Live impromptu conference with you for their bar, or reach out to do a Zoom conference like we're doing, or just want to share some ideas so that they can to learn from you. And so thank you for making that available for bar leaders and people who need your help to come and
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, if people want to do something on resilience, we're putting together a webinar that we can co-produce with state bar associations right now on, how your especially small firm can be resilient in a time like this, how to bounce
perfect.
back, how to provide the services clients need. So happy to co-produce that with people.
I love it. Ed, thank you very much for taking time to talk with me on Zoom today. I hope we get a chance to catch back up in a couple of weeks, compare notes and see where things have changed. But please be safe and have good health. And thank you for taking time with me today, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Be well, and I look forward to seeing all of y'all again soon.
All right. Bye-bye.